I consider any impeachment in the House that doesn't allow us to know who the whistleblower is to be invalid, because without the whistleblower complaint, we wouldn't be talking about any of this. And I also see the need for Hunter Biden to be called to adequately defend the president. And if you don't do those two things, it's a complete joke. It's impossible to bring this case forward, in my view, fairly, without us knowing who the whistleblower is and having a chance to cross-examine them about any biases that they may have. So if they don't call the whistleblower in the House, this thing is dead on arrival in the Senate.
Have called this process a sham. You have a resolution in place calling the process a sham going into these public hearings. But there are now reports that you're not even going to look at it. You are going to completely tune out this upcoming week. A number of your colleagues said that they won't watch the highly anticipated public hearings. You will not look at the transcripts. Is that the answer?
Yeah, I think the whole thing is a joke. I don't want to legitimize what I think is a joke. If you really wanted to find out whether or not the prosecutor was fired because he was getting too close to Hunter Biden, you would call Hunter Biden. To the House Republicans, you've done a good job of trying to correct the record. I think the whole thing is being driven by a partisan, Adam Schiff. The president's counsel is a shutout. We've never done impeachment this way. So I think the whole thing is illegitimate. And if you do not inquire as to why what role Hunter Biden had in getting the prosecutor fired, then you're really not looking at all things Ukraine.
Yeah. Do you think the voters figured this out, sir? I mean, do you think that we're heading into now an election year? Do the voters get this?
To the 31 House Democrats who are serving in districts that Donald Trump holds, you're going to lose your job if you continue to play this game. No president in the history of the country has been treated this way. We've never had an impeachment process set up this way before, where the intel does it, not judiciary. The president counsel is shut out. You got to get the blessing of Schiff before you can call witnesses. The Senate will take up the cause when it comes to the Bidens if the House is shut out. But the reason this is going to blow up in their face is a never-ending effort to destroy Donald Trump. Horowitz will be coming out soon, and if you don't find out who the whistleblower is, the whole thing is illegitimate, because without the whistleblower knowing who they are, you really can't evaluate the credibility of the entire accusation.
It looks like Republicans have finally adopted Trump's strategy of telling so many lies at once that it seems impossible to fact-check them. This is Lindsey Graham on Fox News bragging about the fact that he's not willing to be a fair and neutral juror in Trump's impending impeachment trial. His excuse in all of this is that Democrats aren't willing to validate Republican conspiracy theories about Hunter Biden and bring him in to testify. Now, Republicans obviously came out of their messaging meeting this morning and decided that the BS defense they'd lean on today would be that Trump can't be impeached unless Hunter Biden gets equal scrutiny. And Rand Paul said the exact same thing on Meet the Press.
Are you an open-minded juror? Let me ask it that way.
I'm very open-minded and fair-minded. You'll not meet a person who is more fair than I am. I really do believe that justice should be colorblind, genderblind, you name it. I think justice should. But, you know, one of our traditions about justice, about finding justice, is a defense should be able to present their witnesses. So if you can't call Hunter Biden and you can't call the whistleblower, that's sort of a sham. That's not even really a trial. So I am fair-minded, but the trial has to be fair.
Now, first and foremost, he has been investigated and adjudicated. Joe Biden wasn't pushing for the Ukrainian prosecutor's ouster to protect his son. He was joining the Obama administration and the European Union and international bodies like the IMF and anti-corruption advocates in Ukraine and around the world to oust a prosecutor for not pursuing corruption. I get that Republicans desperately need a boogeyman, but if Hunter Biden is the best they've got, then they are in loads of trouble here. Second, there is zero equivalency between the issues of Hunter Biden and Trump extorting Ukraine. They aren't on the same planet. Even if Hunter did something wrong, that wouldn't be justification for Trump to commit impeachable offenses. To extort a foreign country into announcing the investigation into an American citizen, thereby interfering in an upcoming American election. To dangle desperately needed U.S. taxpayer-funded military aid to a country facing Russian aggression so that Trump has a talking point in 2020. to hide the summary of the call in a secure server to protect himself, to block officials from heeding legal congressional subpoenas and testifying before House investigators. You don't get to murder someone because you suspect they stole a loaf of bread and then claim you won't participate in the murder trial until the bread guy is investigated first. Lindsey Graham then criticizes the idea that we're supposedly not getting a full look into all things Ukraine. But that's the thing these Republicans don't seem to understand. This isn't an investigation into all things Ukraine. They might want it to be so that they can muddy the waters with a bunch of BS conspiracy theories about Burisma and Hunter Biden and the secret hidden DNC server, but in reality, this investigation is about Donald Trump and his impeachable behavior. Period. Graham then pivots to another favorite GOP defense, saying, without the whistleblower, you can't evaluate the credibility of the entire accusation. Only the identity of the whistleblower is utterly irrelevant because the contents of the whistleblower complaint have all already been proven true. The complaint alleged that Trump asked for the favor of an investigation into Biden. That turned out to be true. It alleged that Trump tried to hide the summary of the call in a secure server. That turned out to be true. It alleged that Trump withheld military aid from Ukraine. That turned out to be true. It alleged that Rudy Giuliani was heading up a shadow State Department to circumvent national security protocols. That turned out to be true. The whistleblower could be Adam Schiff and George Soros and Hillary Clinton sitting on each other's shoulders in a long trench coat. It would make zero difference since the complaint has already been corroborated. Graham goes on to complain that Congress has never done impeachment this way before, a reference to the fact that the minority can only request what witnesses they want to call, but it's up to the party in the majority whether they're actually called to testify. Only the thing is, these are Republican rules, passed by the Republican-led House in 2015 and signed by then Speaker of the House John Boehner. So if Lindsey Graham and the rest of the Republican Party thinks that the rules are really partisan and unfair, they might want to take it up with the Republican Party. But the best part of all has to be Lindsey Graham issuing a warning to Democrats who back impeachment, claiming that they'll lose their jobs. I don't know if Graham is desperate or delusional, but to suggest that holding this president accountable is going to hurt Democrats is absolutely not based in reality. Democrats won the House by the biggest margin in modern American history in midterms because of Donald Trump. Democrats just flipped the entire legislature in Virginia. Democrats just won the governor's seat in Kentucky. Republicans have sustained losses in Alabama, Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, Maine, Kansas, Nevada, Oklahoma, and New Mexico during Trump's presidency. If there has ever been a more toxic figure to the right, I could not tell you who it is. So if you were looking for a single sentence that sums up both Republicans' delusion and gaslighting, it's Lindsey Graham telling Democrats that they'll lose their jobs for doing oversight on the most corrupt president in American history. What Graham should probably be more focused on, rather than lobbing empty threats at Democrats, is keeping his own job, since he's part of a shrinking faction in this country who refuses to accept the truth, that Donald Trump committed impeachable offenses and should be removed from office.